another episode of the Next Fix podcast. Today we have a very unique subject matter. Well, at least it may not be unique to people who have an active addiction history, or they've been in maybe even the party scene maybe 10 years ago, but it's something worth being addressed because it might be overlooked as far as the effects that it can have on people being exposed to this particular substance. So today we've got D.E. Foster, and he is an expert on matters of the benzos. And I can't even say it the full name correctly. That's why I just said benzos. That's how I know them. And so if you could say it,
that's how we say them too most of the time, is benzos.
Right. Because how is it? You gotta now I put you on the spot. You gotta say it.
It's benzodiazepines.
Benzodiazepines.
Yep.
That was hard for me. All right.
That's okay, man. Don't worry about it.
It was a lot harder to say than to do them because I've done them entirely too many times. And so D.E. Foster, my man, I do appreciate your time. I appreciate you rocking that super sweet red beard. I love it, man.
It's got the white coming in, but it's a slow process. I'll take it. It's all right.
Yeah, we got to rock it, man. We got to rock that because we're getting freaking old. However, and this is how we always start things, man. You look great now. That's fantastic, but you didn't always look great. So we want to know about those shitty times. When was it bad for you? And then how dark did it get?
Yeah. I want to clarify one thing, and that is, most of my experience is more this whole physical dependent side.
Yeah.
And not so much on addiction. And so while I work with a lot of people with addiction, that wasn't really my beast I had to conquer. It was more the dependence on the drug. And so my story is a little different from that regard, but I think it's a great story to tell.
Well, what is it? Well, what the hell is the difference, man? To me,
great question. Great question.
Yeah.
You just feed right into me. I appreciate that. So I look at three different things we're working with primarily. You have addiction, substance use disorder, which is basically, it's the craving. It's that psychological dependence. It's the craving. It's the need. It's the desire. It's that, that beast that keeps. And that's an illness. It's one that drives us nuts and can keep you wanting the drugs. Also leads sometimes to unethical behavior because we'll do anything to get the fix or to get more drug. That's addiction. Often people with addiction can also have dependence. And so these two can be completely separate and they can be conjoined. So you can have both. Dependence is actually the physical dependence on the drug. Your body's dependence on the drug, meaning when you hit tolerance or when you start coming off the drug or when you start to taper or you discontinue, you have physical symptoms. And a lot of drugs cause that. So that's the two differences between those.
And to me, up until now, it's always been the one and the same. Because
understand that.
Yeah, because I've been addicted to several things, but alcohol being the most recent, right? And so I was physically dependent, and when I had abstained, there was serious repercussions, which led into some of the psychological elements. Like as I approached a liquor store, I would begin to salivate. I would feel the rush, and so
that's the addiction side of it. Yeah, that's the addiction side of it. And we have a lot of people that do have both the addiction. With benzodiazepines, there's the group that have taken a more street use, recreational use, and have wound up with addiction. That's typically more addiction, although dependence is often still part of it. There's also a group that have taken as prescribed. I was one of those people. I was prescribed Klonopin. And I took it for 12 years as prescribed. Never really developed the cravings, never developed the addiction side, but my body became dependent on it. And that happens to a lot of people. So actually, that's a huge world. In fact, a lot of people I support, only like 10% or even less, actually had the addiction side. It's more the dependence. But it doesn't matter where you got the drug. Dependence is typically a factor over time. Okay. And so, go ahead.
Yeah. So I guess the real differentiation is that you were doing things by the book. And then when you decided like, hey, I want to remove this medication, you ran into a brick wall. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So what happened was I was prescribed the drug, took it 12 years, didn't even think about it. I just thought it was a drug I was supposed to take. And then another doctor I had relocated prescribed me with Prozac. And she said it would help me to come off the Klonopin. Well, I didn't know I needed to come off the Klonopin. I didn't know there was a
Right.
problem. And so then I started looking up. And when I looked up and saw what benzodiazepine withdrawal could be, I freaked out, panic attacks, severe anxiety, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I kind of stabilized for about 6 months, and then I slowly tapered for 18 months off the drug, which is not uncommon at all. And now I'm
What is
actually
that?
11. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, brother. What is that? I mean, 18-month tapering
Yeah.
off. My God, like, dude, that's a
We have
long.
people, I run a support community for people like this, and we have people that have done 2 years, 3 years coming off the drug. What really complicates this is when they're on other psych drugs too. There are people that are on 5, 10 different meds, and that just is a mess. And that's really hard to get them off. But on benzodiazepines alone, I want to say this up front. If you're taking a benzo, whatever you do, never cold turkey. It actually can kill you. Okay, so stopping a benzodiazepine cold turkey can kill you. It can cause seizures, hallucinations, whole body tremors, all kinds of serious crap. So do not stop taking. It's always a slow taper. Work with your doctor. Always come off in a proper method. Okay, but even with that, I am 11 years now benzo free, and I still have neurological damage. Okay, and that's this other piece. So there's 3 things. There's addiction, there's dependence, and then I was on a research team, and we developed a term called BIND, which is benzodiazepine-induced neurological dysfunction. And so there's this neurological side too that's unique to benzos. I don't mean that it may not exist with other drugs. It may. It's just our research was only on benzos. And that's where we spotted that, because benzos have had a propensity to this protracted state, meaning that after coming off the drug, after the first month or few months, you have symptoms that can last for years. And for some of us, that's the case. I'm one of those people. So I still have neurological damage from my experience.
What does that look like for, like, what is still lingering? What happens?
It's hard. It's really hard. And I'm not going to downplay it right away. It's extremely severe. We have over 100 and plus symptoms. And that sounds crazy, but when you think about it, anything your nervous system connects to, which is everything, can be affected. And so we have a lot of cognitive problems, memory problems, severe anxiety, extreme anxiety. People can't leave their bedroom, let alone their house, sometimes coming off these drugs. We also have severe pain, muscle pain. We have akathisia, which is that inner restlessness, inner energy to keep moving all the time. Tinnitus, tinnitus in the ear is very common. And that's 5 of the 100 symptoms I can label to you. It goes on. We have heart palpitations. We have all kinds of symptoms that go on. It is a really long laundry list, and they're random. They hit at different times. Different symptoms hit different people. Nobody gets all of them. And that's why it's been so hard for so long for us to identify this. Thankfully, through all the work we've been doing over the last several years, we now have identified it. We are now in medical literature. It is now there. And slowly doctors are starting to understand that there's more to benzodiazepines than just addiction. And there's this dependent side too.
I got a quick question, man. And I don't know if we're able to answer this, but like,
Okay.
I think Jordan Peterson, he wasn't
Yep.
he?
I can
Right.
answer that one. Yes.
Okay.
I've actually
Yeah,
written a couple
that's
articles
accurate.
on, yeah. What he actually did was he was on benzodiazepine. He had dependence issues. He actually went to Russia. This is a really bizarre one. He went to
It's true. Yeah.
Russia and had what they called an ultra fast detox. So an ultra rapid detox, which
Right.
means they actually put him into a coma state, hit him with this antagonist, which is the opposite. So benzodiazepines are an agonist, just to help people understand. I'm not going to get too technical, but they're an agonist, which means they affect a receptor called the GABA-A receptor. They affect a receptor in our bodies, and that body usually receives GABA, and GABA calms you down. And so these drugs enhance that ability, so they get more GABA, so you're calmer. That makes sense. Well, when they're taken away, over time, those receptors adapt to that change. And now you need either more of the drug or you're going to have a lot of complications. So coming off the drug's really hard. Well, they put him into a coma and actually gave him flumazenil, which is an antagonist. It's like the opposite. And it supposedly helped you come off the drug. And they had to put him in a coma because it's a high risk of seizures and other different complications with that drug. Anyway, he did that, came back. The problem is, while that can help people through the taper and the initial coming off the drug, in the literature, we haven't seen it have necessarily an effect on the long-term protracted complications, like what I deal with now. So, and actually Jordan Peterson is still having problems with what we call bind, and which is that protracted state, this neurological effect that we do heal, but it can take years. I mean, I'm 11 years off and I still have complications. So
Yeah, that really stung me when it was going down because I used so much. I mean, he's one of my favorite authors, and I was like, I took a lot of what he said, to heart. And when I had got sober and when I kind of heard him speaking about it, I was like, wow, man, like it kind of burned me a little bit because he went to Russia because you can't get that kind of treatment in Canada and you can't get it in the US.
No.
And so he went to Russia and he has, obviously it looks like a very, involved procedure, right? To make it happen. And I'm like, damn, I was just sitting in my room sweating.
It is frightening. Well, and that's the other thing too, is, I mean, this is a group of people, including myself and a lot of people I work with, who are extremely susceptible to negative feedback. And so telling somebody, hey, this is going to be a life-altering condition, significant. And I'll admit, I've lost people who couldn't take it and had to stop. And so, in fact, including good friends in this procedure, it's that severe of a condition for some people.
Yeah.
But I want to make it clear that only about 30% of the people have this dependence issue protracted coming off the drug. So there's a lot of people that come off the drug, no problem.
Right.
And no problem. So, and even those people, we now know so much more. We work with them, we help them through it, and we get people to success most of the time. And so there is a good path. And I always want to say that because I don't want to scare the hell out of people, which we do, So the Jordan Peterson thing is an extreme. We actually do have some flumazenil clinics that work with that drug here, but it's not that intravenous. Like, it's subcutaneous. They'll do a patch or something, and it's a much slower protocol. But even still, I don't know that it really remedies that long-term complications that we have. I think it can get to people. So it's not really recommended. I was part of the ASAM guideline that just came out, which is American Society of Addiction Medicine. And I was on that panel that helped create that. And they don't recommend flumazenil on that guideline. So speaking of that one, it's still not tested enough for us to recommend it for a treatment option.
Sure. Okay. Sure. And you got to, just for the sake of everybody, intravenous is like in your vein, and subcutaneous is in your fat, right? I just want to
subcutaneous. Yeah, it's one of the ones where you put a patch on, kind of like, someone with estrogen. Yeah, you might do different things, like a scopolamine patch. It's something that's a patch that slowly gets absorbed by the system. And that is one of the things they've had used. And there's actually some that are injectables but are slow injectable. The problem is the drug at any significant of a level can lead to seizures. So it has to be extremely slow application over time without that type of coma-inducing issue that Peterson went through.
Now, so in my journey, right, there was a part where when I was going through alcohol withdrawals, I was actually prescribed, I always say Klonopin, but I don't think there's a D in there.
It's a Klonopin.
Klonopin, yeah. Well, I was given that to prevent the seizures.
Yes.
Right?
It is a seizure. Yeah. It is a benzodiazepine, and it is a medication to prevent seizures. It is still applied for that. So, yes.
Well, I abused it anyway. It wasn't.
No, it's okay. A lot of people do.
I was 100%. Wasn't following the rules like yourself. I think that what you're touching on is real, right? Like, I even ask myself, how much of my clarity is affected still? And, I'm so much better than I was. It's easy for me to say, well, I'm a heck of a lot better off, which is the truth. But I wonder if I was just such a train wreck before that it wouldn't be on my radar, maybe some of the still lingering effects.
It's probably not the only thing affecting you, of course, but it definitely probably is a factor. And unfortunately, I hate to tell you this, but Klonopin seems to have the highest propensity of protracted issues of the benzodiazepines. And we've seen that there's no been study directly on it, but anecdotally, we've seen that in our evidence that, it just seems people with Klonopin are the ones that are having more trouble down the line. And that was my drug. So its generic name is clonazepam, just so you know, and it's called Klonopin. and it's one. The other benzos include Xanax, Ativan, Valium. So for those who don't know what this class of drugs are, and then there's
Yeah,
also
that's good.
yeah, there's also Z drugs. I want to mention those because those do act a lot like benzos. Their classes are actually called non-benzodiazepines, but they have a lot of the similar complications, and those are Ambien, Lunesta, Sonata, those types of drugs. And so be careful if switching from a benzo to a Z drug, because you might be just switching one problem off for another.
Yeah. So there's like, from my experience, right? Like you're 100 times more clinical and more knowledgeable. But what I remember is like the street experience, right? And it was like Xanax erased memory like this. It
Yeah,
was
they
like
can. Yeah.
boom, like gone. It was like I was time traveling.
Mhm.
Boom, I take it. 10 hours later, I'm somewhere.
And it works
Right?
like that. That's what's amazing with these benzos, especially Xanax. And just so you know, Xanax and Klonopin are both two of the most potent benzos ever made.
Right.
So you took both of them. Nice job.
Yeah, yeah. And on the street,
Yeah.
I had mentioned to you before we hit record is that my mother, she's still actively in addiction, but
Yeah.
just a
Sorry about
quick
that.
story. Yeah, I mean, I talk about this kind of often, but like she had come to my house like when I was much younger, and she was like, "Can you get me some Xanax?" And then she got there, and I only had like 30 of them for her,
Yeah.
and she wanted like 400 or 500. And I
Oh,
remember it was like one
jeez.
of the first fights we had gotten in, and I thought to myself like, "What is your issue, lady?"
That's a
And it was
tough one. Yeah.
she's she still rocks those things, like candy, and so but I think that, when I look back at the usage, I'm trying to like do a self audit of whether or not maybe some of that is lingering for myself. But, in your experience, like, do you feel that like that benzos are maybe worse even than opiates?
Great question. In fact, there's a famous quote out there that says benzo withdrawals are worse than heroin. And again, you're comparing apples and oranges. So it's one of those things that's hard to do. The problem with it, I would say absolutely yes, but of course it's my personal experience. Here's the issue is that opioids are probably more complicated often from the addiction perspective. Okay, they do seem to have that following. The thing with opioids is while it can be a horrendous detox, it can be more rapid, and once the detox is over, the lingering complications usually aren't as bad as the benzodiazepines. And that's where I think that quote comes from, is that benzodiazepines can be a detox that lasts for years. And that's what it feels like. It's not really the detox, but it's that neurological complication that stays with you. And that does seem to be more unique with benzos and with, like I mentioned, the Z drugs that we haven't seen in other drugs. And these, I mean, they've been around for 60 years. And there's been a lot of warnings along the way. We just haven't really done much about it, until recently we made a lot of progress on alerting people to the complications of them. So,
Yeah. And now you had mentioned that benzos, it can kill you because
yeah.
opiates, it doesn't kill you.
No, it by itself, opioids won't kill you. Actually, opioids, here's one of the things, here's a stat for you, is that 30%, this was from a few years back, but 30% of all opioid deaths include a benzo. The combination is deadly. The combination
I
is
see.
very dangerous. Benzo withdrawal by itself, and I think there's another drug too. I'm not going to pull it, but you mentioned earlier, alcohol and benzodiazepines are the only two drugs where detox can kill you, basically. And I think there's another class that's come along that seems to they found also with that one. I can't pull it right now, but those have always been the two. And honestly, you mentioned alcohol; they are very similar. They're both sedatives. They both have a lot of same effects. The more research I've been involved in multiple research teams on benzos, the more we see they're like alcohol more than anything else.
Yeah.
And so that's really the connection, is they are far more like alcohol than they are opioids. Opioids have their own beast. They're a nightmare. And I was the co-chair of the benzodiazepine action work group at the Colorado, God, I'm going to get it wrong now, Colorado Consortium for Prescription Drug Abuse Prevention. And so I worked a lot with opioids. Their primary focus was opioids, so I worked a lot with them, but I headed up their benzodiazepine work group, okay, along with Dr. Alexis Ritfo out of the Anschutz Medical School. So she and I co-chaired that for 3 years and helped to raise awareness and help to get things done, stuff like that.
Yeah. It's so tough, doing real work out there, because to differentiate everybody I've ever known, or ever been alongside with never did just one thing. Very rarely was it just one thing. Like it was always a comorbid situation. And so, I was just talking about it on a show that I'm definitely not angry at the doctors who they
I love
diagnosed me
that.
with schizophrenia and
Oh,
bipolar. How
they
could they
medicated you?
diagnose?
Yeah.
I was a freaking nutcase,
Oh my
and
God,
very
yeah.
rarely was I sober sitting
Yeah.
there in their office, right? So how in the heck can they do their
And they
job?
medicate when they suspect something, and that's what we run into. That's what we deal with a lot, both not just benzos but SSRIs, SNRIs, all the different psychotropic drugs. We deal with a lot of that, and that is just the overprescribing. But when they don't really know, when they overdiagnose, and these are the complications we run into time after time after time after time. So yeah, you have the world of the street drug use, and you have the world of the prescription drug use. And both of them have complications, And I deal a lot with the prescription drug use, but I have started to work more and more with street drug issues related because a lot of that, there's so much crossover. But it's just one of the things where I think psychiatrists especially, but doctors, when they don't know better, they prescribe a drug. And unfortunately, those drugs
Why?
can have negative complications.
What were you originally taking it for?
Yeah. I was prescribed Klonopin by my GP, so general practitioner, for stomach distress. I had a bad
Interesting.
stomach since I was a child, always had digestive issues, and I think he at some time thought maybe it was anxiety related. And so he prescribed Klonopin thinking, and there probably was a factor. I mean, I think I did a little better on it for a while. I had no idea it was creating maybe a lifelong dependence issue for me. And I took it for 12 years without even thinking about it. I just really didn't. And I probably was a little better during that time. That the downside of benzos, and you probably know this from a lot of these drugs, it's like you wouldn't take street drugs if they didn't feel good. And you wouldn't take benzos if they weren't effective. The problem is that these drugs actually work. That's the
Oh yeah.
problem. And so you can take, whereas like an SSRI, you take some other antidepressant, it's a month before you figure out maybe if it's effective to you. It's a long time. With
Yeah.
a benzodiazepine, you take it and boom. That's why
Yeah.
people pop a Xanax on a flight or when things
Yeah.
get stressful, because it's an instant reaction. Well, our problem is they are effective. That's why people want them. And that's why people then become dependent on them. What they don't realize is the risk of totally altering your life. And I work with people every single day whose lives have been completely destroyed by these drugs, not even including the addiction side, just the dependent side. You add the
Yeah.
addiction to it, it's a whole nother layer.
That's why so many smart people become addicts because
Yes. Oh,
if you
absolutely.
do the math,
Absolutely. Yep.
you're like, it costs nothing and I'm better in 10 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. And then you don't think of a week ahead
Yeah.
or a year or 10 years. You're like, that worked. So I'm gonna do that again. And so that this is why I see so
But
many
it's
people.
the downside both of, that's where they cross over. I think it's the downside of both of addiction and the prescribed side of, which is we want the quick fix. We want the short-term gain. We don't think about the long term, or we're not told about the long term, which is often the
Right.
case too. And so we don't look at that long-term effect. We want that quick fix. We need it now. And then, like your mom and so other people like me and everything else, over time, now we're stuck.
Yeah.
Either you're stuck on the drug or you come off the drug and you're stuck with its effects, and it's not good.
No. So what has developed as, like how did that look like for you? Like was your dependence, was that the genesis of what the work you do now is?
Yes, absolutely. I was a database programmer for 25 years. I also I was a screenwriting teacher for years. So I did those two careers. And both of those stopped immediately when I started coming off of the benzos because I couldn't work. I mean, I finally had to quit all jobs. I lost my job. I lost most of my friends. The only thing I got to keep was my house and my wife, which I am so ever so grateful. I got my wife stuck with me. It was not easy. It was incredibly hard. I tapered for 18 months, which was difficult with the Klonopin. The problem is, this is what's really crazy. It's like you don't know these prescriptions. I mentioned that Xanax and Klonopin are very potent. They are 20 times as potent as Valium. 20 times.
Wow.
And so 1 milligram of Klonopin or Xanax equals approximately 20 milligrams of Valium. Okay. Well, you come off these pills, and the smallest I could cut it was down to 0.25. Well, that's 5 milligrams of Valium. My last dose was 5 milligrams of Valium. That's a huge jump, we now know, but I didn't know better. And so I
Right.
jumped off 5 milligrams of Valium. And the next 3 years, my life was pure hell, just pure hell.
Wow.
It was
3
just
years.
terrible. Yeah. And then things started to get better. I did some things. I had some moments here and there, but things have improved since then. But I still have setbacks. I still have complications. I still have, neurological complications I deal with, anxiety, all kinds of stuff. And I have 3 types of tinnitus that go on all the time. I have akathisia, where I can't sleep at night, insomnia. I mean, I could just list all these different symptoms, and there's some that are very severe. And I work with people every day who, can't get out of bed, who lay in bed with burning skin. It feels like their skin's burning nonstop. People whose akathisia, they have so much energy running through them, it never stops. And they are just always in constant energy.
Is that comparative to like restless leg syndrome?
Actually, yeah. Restless leg would be a part of an akathisia type of condition. Yeah. It's basically inner restlessness is what it's referred to. So it's just that constant. I've had that for years, and mine comes and goes, thank God. I know people who have had it constant. But thankfully, mine comes and goes.
That feeling, because when I came off of opiates, yeah, like it's just this never ending like restlessness. It's haunting. It's haunting. And there's nothing actually wrong, but like there's no solution in sight except for doing the drug.
Well, and I'm sure the alcohol wasn't helping either, because, I mean, like I said, alcohol and benzos are the same, very similar, and both are sedatives, which means they both have an effect of increasing the effect of GABA. GABA calms you down. This is really simple. Glutamate revs you up. There's more neurotransmitters involved. I'm sticking with very simple. Okay, but think of glutamate revs you up and GABA slows you down. And if those receptors can no longer receive the calming message of GABA, we can't calm ourselves down. And so we get excited, and we get more excited, and we get more excited, and we are in a constant state of fight or flight. And that's what happens. And that's what you experienced, was you were in this constant fight or flight state. And that can just drive you crazy.
Yeah. And oddly enough, and I hate to keep going back to it, but my mother, she takes gabapentin.
That's another GABAergic drug. Yep. I know.
She just, and like I remember even like taking some of that, and it would kind of calm me down a little bit. Yeah, that restlessness, man, gosh.
It's vicious. It is vicious. Yeah.
Remembering it, it's like it is something.
And those are just some of the symptoms. I mean, I have urinary dysfunction, I have pelvic floor dysfunction. I got like I said, my list is about 75 symptoms for myself that I experienced over the last 10 years.
Now the tinnitus, that's like the ringing in your ears. Is that you get that?
Yeah, I got 3 types. I got a pulsatile. I have background white noise all the time. It never goes away. I have it right now. And then I have a high-pitched one that's periodic. It kicks in. So I have 3 types of tinnitus. Yeah.
Dude. Oh my gosh, dude. Those are all they're all very like haunting type. Yeah. When I say haunting, like it's like happening. It's not, you can still drive, you can still probably do things, but you get just constantly bombarded by this horrible feeling or this sound. And it's like, wow, that just sounds very tough, man. And so,
and also just one more piece too is the digestive tract takes a huge hit, and those GABA receptors I talked about, the digestive system has tons of GABA receptors. So, and there's a vagus nerve that connects it all. And so I have severe inflammation of the gut. For a while, I looked like I was 8 months pregnant, that much inflammation. And we have a lot of people that look like that it's that inflamed. And it also leads to urinary difficulties. It leads to sexual dysfunction. It leads to all kinds of complications because you are so inflamed and the nervous system just isn't, regulating properly in that area. So there's a whole group of things. But on the good side is that we heal from amazing things. And I'm always careful not to give such a dire message to people.
Right.
There are people right now that are taking a benzo that are listening to your show and going, oh my God, my life's over. It's like, no, wait. It's like, there's so much more support for you now than there was when I started 10 years ago. And we know so much more. We know how to go about it. We know how to withdraw. We know how to manage some of that so that you don't have as many symptoms. So I always want to put a positive message that, work with us, work with people in our community and get help. You can deal with it, whether it's with addiction, whether it's dependence, whether it's both. with both of those, you can, I always want to make sure I do that, because
But
it
yeah.
could be a very dire message I
Well,
provide
listen.
sometimes.
Well, hey man, I mean that is I dig into the comeback story often, and
Yeah,
I mean for all reasons of my journey, like where I've been, I should be dead or I shouldn't
exactly.
be able to speak. Like there's a million things that I should have
And
not.
yet, look at you. You're here. You're talking about your problems. You got your own podcast helping out other people.
Right, right.
Yeah,
I had a kid. Like, I mean, I thought
awesome.
for sure
Yeah,
there's like all these things. I thought I was never gonna have a driver's license or have a 700 credit score. It does come back. Like you can
yes,
get
yes.
all of it
And
back.
that's the message we always want to tack onto the end:
Right.
is your success, my success, is like, there is a way through, there is a
Yeah.
way out, and there is a way back to a really good life.
Right.
And I always want to make sure I cap that. But it was hard, really hard, and it's still hard at times. So I'll admit that.
Yeah. And that's the truth, brother. I mean, to become clean of even your medication, right? Who is really going to stop you from taking that forever? Probably
And
nobody.
well, and that's just it. Yeah, I mean, it's through the prescription side, and that's a good question, because there hasn't been. But a lot of the work we're doing and some of the work we just did, that is starting to change. So now they're being monitored to try to we're trying to get them to only do short-term prescribing, which is 30 days or less. Most people that develop dependence on benzodiazepines, the standard we say is 2 to 4 weeks or less. Okay. When you go beyond 2 to 4 weeks, then you could wind up with dependence and you could wind up with long-term complications. So,
Right. And that's responsible doctoring, right? Like, and
yeah,
I knew when I was getting opiates, if I went to a doctor, like, 3 out of 4 would be like, oh, here's your 30
yeah,
days tops. And then I'd find one and he's corrupt as hell and I could get, a never ending supply. Right. But so it's good that it's like, it's not quite the same as it was, it wasn't
yeah.
too
There's a
long.
system out there called the PDMP, which is a prescribing database that doctors use, and we actually just passed a few years back passed some legislation in Colorado that helped to control opioids. It helped to control benzodiazepines. We got benzodiazepines tacked onto House Bill 1276, which actually monitored them and limited how they can do new prescriptions. And so that was really helpful. And that helps the doctors kind of guide them on the right procedure
Right.
without those types of things. Another aspect, and this you're going to understand, I think, is that we can't eliminate them. Number one, these drugs are needed for certain things, but we also need to make them available for tapering, because you can't come off these drugs instantly. And so if a doctor suddenly stops you cold turkey, that can be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that we make them available for that slow taper off the drug if people choose to do so.
Yeah, it comes to mind my experience while I was in jail, and I remember seeing that Suboxone, right? So there'd be guys coming in there, and start it'd start hitting them, and I thought that was a rapid taper, right? It was aggressive because they're in jail and all that, but like I thought, wow, that's a crazy.
That's a crazy journey.
It's a gift. It is a gift because two times I was in jail. One time I was in jail coming off opiates in
Hmm.
Nevada. I didn't see that. That wasn't happening. They gave
Okay.
me a bucket. And then in Florida, there was the Suboxone program. So people that were coming off, they were actually taking them to the clinic and giving them
Oh
Suboxone.
man.
And I feel like their success is probably higher
Yeah.
because I know as an addict, like that's part of the mental element, right? That's part of the mental because you know how bad it sucked when you came off of it. So you're like, I've got to keep this thing going because I don't want to feel like that again. Right. And so when
Exactly.
they don't allow that horror and that feeling to it, attached to a circumstance like being locked up and coming off the drugs, it does, I think it could increase the ability for a person's, chances at staying off.
Yeah,
But,
I get that.
it's
But
dependent on
that's one of the dangers too, which you just mentioned, which is throwing benzos in with that group, because if they cold turkey people off the benzos, it's a different story. And now where you're going to go through that short term hell with these other drugs, with benzos, you could take your life. I mean, they had Patrick Walters was a guy that was arrested here in Colorado for assault, bar fight kind of thing. He was on 6 milligrams of Xanax. They took away his medication, and he was dead 11 days later in jail and just tortured, because he was gone crazy and he was assaulting himself. They had him strapped to a chair. They never once took him to the hospital. Not once.
Wow.
And so there was this huge lawsuit against him, and they won, because they just ignored him completely. They thought he was faking it. They thought he wasn't. And the guy was going through severe benzodiazepine withdrawal. And finally, they had to petition to get the actual medical records. And when they finally got him, because they tried to cover it up, when they finally got it, it said benzodiazepine withdrawal is what killed him.
Wow.
Because they took it away. So hopefully they're learning you can't do that with these drugs. You cannot take those away instantly. It can be, and even the ones that it doesn't kill, it severely complicates your withdrawal. Yeah. I work with a lot of people who CT'd, who have cold turkeyed off benzos, and I work with a lot of them, and it's a much harder journey for them than the ones who slowly tapered.
Yeah, it's the whole damn thing is so hard.
It's crazy. I know.
Yeah. And so what else does you're doing a lot of research, and clearly you're doing some political work too, right? You mentioned a bill and
raising awareness. We do a lot of awareness both within. Yeah, when I got into it, it's like there was already this benzo community, and when I say benzo community, it's this online of people who have been affected and created organizations, and some amazing organizations out there. So I definitely didn't find that. I came along, and now I formed my own groups, and I helped form groups, but it was already there. And a lot of them had done work. They were really trying to push for informed consent out in Massachusetts. And informed consent means legislation requiring doctors to give informed consent of what the complications of these drugs might be. Okay. And requiring them. That kept falling. And we realized that's not going to work. It's just, it wasn't going to pass. So we tried this other that I mentioned, the PDMP, which is this database. So we worked with that and worked with some different legislation, and ours has been very effective. So that got put in place, that passed, and that has helped change how the prescribing goes and what goes on. But most of my work is done. We raise awareness. We help educate doctors. I teach doctors. We've done a lot of research. The research has made a big difference. We had a benzodiazepine survey of 2018, 2019 that I was on that. We published 3 papers on it. And the third paper was the one that identified benzodiazepine-induced neurological dysfunction, or BIND. And now BIND is starting to be used more and more in medical literature. People are recognizing it. And we just published probably one of the better ones, which is American Society of Addiction Medicine is a large medical association. So them founded this along with 9 other medical associations, came out with their deprescribing, means how to come off the drug, deprescribing guidelines for benzodiazepines. And I was on the panel for that. So we came out with that after 2 years of work. It's the first clinical guideline that recognizes this problem, that recognizes dependence. And so we got BIND recognized, we got American Society, we got medical associations working. And so I think when I first came into a lot of people were just really mad at doctors and mad at pharmaceuticals, and rightly so, every right to be pissed off and want to sue and everything. I get that. But I knew that wasn't going to change it. And so myself and all these other amazing people in our community, we started working with the doctors, and we said, okay, there's some doctors that get this. There's some doctors who understand this, who want to work with us. And so we started doing that, and we started changing from the inside, and we have changed it from the inside. We got a lot of work to do, but it's really amazing what we've accomplished and what we've gotten done just in the last 5 years.
That's just a really positive, because that positivity around it is rare, and most people are just pissed off.
And I get it. And rightly so. Yeah, rightly so. I was pissed off too, trust me.
Yeah. Well, but this is an important thing, because one of the saving graces of my particular journey in recovery is that I never was pissed off at the doctor. I could be. I was given 220 roxycodones a month, 30 milligram roxycodone. It was enough to kill a rhinoceros.
Absolutely.
However, that doctor didn't put those drugs in my body. And this is how recovery was possible for me, because I never had that. I never leaned on that.
I like you, Ryan. I like you. Yeah, you and I think alike, because I realized here for 12 years, I never once looked up Klonopin. Why did I never look it up? Why didn't I ever try to figure it out? I just trusted the doctor knew what they were doing. And I'm like you, where my doctor that prescribed me, got me on it, was a personal friend.
Wow.
And it's like, and while I didn't like the fact that he did that, and even when I went back to him, he didn't even acknowledge it, I still don't, he just did what he was taught.
Right.
What we needed to do was change the system. But
Right.
you and I think alike, which is I have some responsibility in this. And I
Yeah.
need to take accountability for myself, and I need to move forward. And what can I do to change it so other people don't face this? And
Yeah.
that's where I've come from. And I think it sounds like you've been doing the same thing. And it's like, we can make it better for other people that are following,
Yeah. Because it's just not effective being pissed off about it. It
It
doesn't, like
doesn't
you're
change. Yeah,
saying.
I mean, it feels good. I mean, I know it feels bad, but it also feels good because there's that justified anger. One of the things I've noticed people going through this, and I don't know if this is in the addiction world as much, and maybe you can tell me, but with the people I work with, and I work with them daily in sessions, is that I'm seeing the 5 stages of grief, and I see them have this denial, this anger, and anger is, one of those 5 stages, and they get caught there. Some people get caught in that stage and can't move forward. But then eventually you get to depression, you get to, you get past bargaining and you get to depression, and then you get to this acceptance. And that's probably one of the key things we do is help people reach the acceptance, meaning, okay, this happened to me. Now I got to figure out how to get through it and how to make the best of it. And that's when we really can help people, but we can't always get them there. They kind of have to get there themselves. I don't know if that happens with addiction, with the mindset and with the craving, but at least
Yeah.
for the people we work with, I see that pattern quite often.
Well, to go right back to the well here, my mom is still in denial. My mom,
Exactly.
till this
Exactly.
day, has
I know.
never admitted that she's done or does. She won't even hint at that alcohol's bad or has affected her badly, right? Like alcohol's not in its own right bad, but people that abuse it, it's very bad, right? And so the denial, we've not even gotten off the we haven't even got off the launch pad, So, and then with myself, denial was never even an option, brother. Like I looked left and right, there was not an ounce of evidence that I was not at complete rock bottom, and that was also a gift, Like that was a gift for me though, because
Yeah.
it was like it fast forwarded me to the acceptance, because it's like, what, who the hell am I going to get mad at, right? Like, I could get mad at all, 100 different people, but it's that doesn't do a damn
And
thing.
nobody else is going to get you out of this other than you. But
Right.
I wanted to mention real quick, you and I have that similarity because my mom was alcoholic. So
Yeah.
she didn't have the benzodiazepine problem, but she had the alcohol problem. And in fact, that led to her encephalitis eventually and to her downturn and everything like that. We didn't know she was that addicted at that point. But my mom was one of those social drinkers her whole life, but
Right.
she had the addiction personality her whole life. And so it's just one of those things that she, didn't handle. And I was in Al-Anon for 2 years, so I'm
Wow.
familiar with the 12-step programs, and I'm familiar with everything from that standpoint. So,
Yeah. Well, brother, I mean, I can't imagine a better approach than to, kind of go on the inside, and man, good on you for doing so much in 5 years.
well, thanks.
But where can people join the fight? Where can people like
Yeah.
link up with you and like be a part of this, man? Because this is
Absolutely. I'm
pretty cool.
happy to help. Yeah, I run an organization called Uneven Life. We're at unevenlife.com. And our organization actually we have content online, all the kinds of information about benzos, all the information. We work with people that are struggling with anxiety and anxiety meds, either one. So even if it's chronic anxiety, we help people, but we also help people because if we can help people with anxiety, we can help them not go on the med. So that's our approach, is that, so we're trying to tackle it, but we also help people coming off and dealing with protracted and dealing with bind. We probably have the most information on this bind condition of any site because, I was one of the researchers on the papers. So we have that. We also have an online community, which is at our Uneven Life. We have an online community which people join, and we have boards that people can communicate, and then we do daily sessions with them. So we have life group sessions on Zoom. I work with them every day. I was on one this morning with my managing director, Rachel Mascaro, and she was on there. She runs that, 25 people in a room talking about their issues. We do this every day, pretty much. And then we also do coaching, and we also will be launching some courses here probably in the next month or so. So that's kind of how we work. And then there's
That's a ton of stuff.
we keep busy. We keep busy. Thanks.
That's outrageous, man. And that is so cool that you're actually proactively trying to get the people before they end up,
you got to
going
get them
down.
early. Yeah, if you can, it seems like with addiction. I mean, if you can get the education, if you can help them, if you can find alternatives. And again, it's not about like, we always talk about stigmatizing. It's not about, always just say no. It's about figuring out what's driving them, as you know, with addiction, what's driving them to that, and how can we find an alternate route? How can we find someplace else to take that energy and direct it? And we do the same thing. There really is a lot of crossover between the two organizations. And I deal with a lot of people. Several of my members go to AA. Several of my members are in, 12-step programs. So we work with it on both sides. But we deal a lot with the dependent side because we understand the medical complications coming off these drugs. So
That's huge, brother. Well,
thanks, man.
I'm truly appreciative of you out there doing this kind of work, man.
Well, I love this podcast, man. God, you have been so easy to talk to, Ryan. Thank you so much, man. No, really, man. I feel like we're brothers from a different mother. It's kind of disconnected right away. So I appreciate
I'm
you,
glad that we're not brothers from my mother. Clearly,
or mine. Yeah, for that
kind
matter.
of trashing on her, man.
Mine's passed on now, so I can talk to her about it a little bit. She's passed on now, so I can. But I love my mom to death. But yeah, it wasn't easy growing up with an alcoholic mom, and I'm sure you had some complications with your mom. So
I laugh about it so I don't cry, brother. But
exactly.
But listen, man, unevenlife.com, and then I'll put this all in writing, and we're gonna get some eyes on your stuff. Until the next episode, y'all. This has been The Next Fix. See you.